Hey friends, and welcome in to a walk through the Word, Daily Bread with Crystal Fry. I am your host, Crystal Fry, and what a beautiful conversation we have on tap today. Joining me for this week's guest episode is Michaela S. Cox, a multi-published author who writes on a diverse variety of subjects, including motherhood, parenting, faith, and politics. She also shares openly about her personal journey of a lifelong disability of legal blindness, divorce at age 26, and the loss of her beloved husband at age 38. In our conversation, Michaela and I talk about her 38 triple D journey with disability, divorce, and death, how her faith has fueled her throughout her life, and why she feels so passionate about sharing her journey with others. Michaela also shares her 5-step process of finding grace through grief and life. This is indeed such a beautiful conversation, my friends, and I am grateful for the opportunity to share it with you. And of course, friends, don't forget to check out the show notes to connect with Michaela through her website, on social media, and check out her books on Amazon. All right, friends, here we go. God's Word is powerful. The missing link is our identity in Christ. When we know who we are and who He created us to be, that is when we can truly walk in freedom. You are never alone. There is hope, and that hope is Jesus Christ. Michaela, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. It is an absolute pleasure to have you here. I cannot wait to have this conversation with you to see where it goes and how we develop and how this conversation kind of uncovers is the word that keeps coming up in my mind. So I'm not really sure what we're going to uncover in this conversation,
We'll have to
but
wait and see, won't we?
yes.
We
But I'm
did a quest of an adventure and a journey, and I'm unsolving a mystery and unlocking it.
Oh,
But
I
yes,
love
I'm glad
that.
to be here as well.
Well, for any of our listeners who may not be familiar with you, why don't you do us a favor and tell us a little bit more about who you are?
Yeah, sure. I'm Michaela S. Cox. I am a multi-published author. I am trying to get into coaching, and I'm a speaker, and I'm a mommy of
Oh,
two. I have a little guest next to me. Um, and I write books, and I have 5 series I'm building out on a variety of diverse topics, anything from motherhood and parenting in the sense of let's be intentional about what we're instilling in our kids and the legacy we leave them. And then, okay, so motherhood, parenting, my faith, obviously, that one, and what I kind of observe about those things. And then I'm a little bit of an odd duck because I'm fixing to throw one in that most people wouldn't think that would be thrown into that mix. I even have one on politics. Yes, I know I'm weird. I actually enjoy it. Funny story behind some of that. Not that we want to get into maybe that aspect, but I've always kind of written and had inklings towards politics because I don't know why. When I was in second grade, I had a weird thought that I think it was around the time of 86, 87 when I was in second grade, and we were living in Texas at the time. I must have got my feathers ruffled about a court decision by the Supreme Court that apparently burning the flag was within the parameters of First Amendment freedom of expression rights. And I didn't think that was right. So I decided I had to say something about it. So I don't know what second grader has an opinion on that or thinks they should take action and write an editorial, but I did, and it got published. So yeah, like I said, strange here, but I put it in my book. So anyway, I do that. And then let's see. So that's 4. And then I have one on my own life's journey called Now I See. So
beautiful. Listen, I love it. Mostly because you're right. Like, what second grader thinks to write a letter to the editor about anything, I mean, about anything at all. So
American politics.
that's right. I admire your courage for that. I admire, the fact that you are not, so many people hold back from voicing, from using their voice, from speaking on
No,
things or
not
from
me.
writing. Yeah, like, so I definitely applaud that. Well, Michaela, my favorite question to
Many people
ask.
have to. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I
No,
was going to
go
say
ahead.
something
Go
funny.
ahead. Finish what you were saying.
Not many people have to wonder about what's going on in this little redhead. Okay, I'm not shy. I
Full
don't know.
transparency.
Yeah.
Well, Michaela, my favorite question to ask our guest is, how has your faith impacted your life? And just from what you've told us already, I have an idea that it has impacted it greatly. So I would love for you to share a little bit more about how your faith has impacted your life.
Well, of course, yeah. I became a Christian when I was like, I don't know, 5 and a half. So it's been a part of my life longer than it hasn't. I mean, most people don't really remember their lives before five anyway. So people are like, well, what was your life before five? I was like, I don't really remember. No. I mean, because you're five. So, but yeah, it's been a part of my life more than it hasn't. And even before I made my own profession of faith, the inspiration for the Now I See series is double folded, and we'll get into that in a second. Um, I have a story I tell, and that's the other thing about my writing is not only do I have these 5 series that I'm building up, but I take a lot from my own life experience and what I've learned from the journey that I've walked, and I call it my a journey of learning how to go 38 triple D, a journey of how to go from thriving to surviving. It does not mean what most people would think it means. It's nothing to do with garment size or my physical body. It has to do with by the age of 38, I had traveled through 3 Ds of my life. Lifelong disability, a blindness or legal blindness. And then I got divorced when I was 26. And then excuse me, at 38, well, let me back up. In 2005, after my divorce, I was very blessed and fortunate to meet the second man that I would marry and who would be the love of my life. And sorry, something's out my throat. And then we would be together for like 12 years. And then suddenly in 2017, when I was 38, hence the 38 part, he would unexpectedly pass away. So death of beloved husband at 38. So anyway, so 38 triple D, disability, divorce, and death of beloved husband.
And I
So
I think that it's a really impactful thing that you bring your experiences into your writing and into the things that you're doing, into how you interact with other people, because that is, I'm sure, something that, while I have not personally experienced those three things, just listing them out, disability, divorce, death, I feel certain that those are three things that people who do have those in their lives do. They're complicated journeys, right? I mean, you have to
yeah,
navigate through those in a different way. And so I love that you bring your perspective and your lived experience into everything that you're doing, because you're helping other people to navigate a path that you've already walked and that you're continuing to walk, because these things don't go away, right?
the divorce kind of just taking care of itself. That's why I left. But yeah, the disability is always going to be with me, and grief, no matter what people may like to think or would hope that it is, it's not as simple or easy or cut and dry as, oh, okay, that happened. No, it doesn't work that way. It's oftentimes a boomerang effect, as I like to call it, but because it comes back. But anyway, so as far as the faith goes, yes, my faith has been with me through all of those things. And even before I became a Christian, the thing about the disability part is there's a story behind that. Well, there's a story behind everything. So let's just say that. But this particular part of the story, I was originally born totally blind, where I didn't see anything. And then at 7 months old, I was granted my sight. So because of my faith background and being a Christian in my family, we believe very much that God decided to grant me my sight, even though it's impaired. I still do see, as opposed to when I did not see at all for the first 7 months of my life. So even before I became a Christian, that was always a part of my life, in the sense of that miracle and having that faith and knowing that that's what happened in my life. And then once I became a Christian, it's been my faith that has allowed me to go through all this stuff that we just talked about and be here and have these conversations. So
So
hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, it does. I think it's pretty clear to see that your faith definitely has been woven throughout your life, which I think is a beautiful testimony. There sometimes I kind of think that you have two like camps. Not that either one is good, bad, right, or wrong, but you
Yeah,
have individuals who have always been around faith, and I am in that camp. I grew up in the church, and so I don't remember a time where I didn't know who God was or I
exactly.
didn't know about
Yeah,
Jesus. Like I don't. He's always been a part of my life.
yep,
And
I
then you
agree.
have the other group that they experience their introduction to real faith and they get to meet Jesus for the first time, like as an adult, or at least, later in their late teens, early
Yeah,
20s, even beyond that. And there is almost much more of a significant like turnaround because they actually had something, to turn around as opposed to kind of growing up in it. And not that we don't all face challenges and struggles and trials, because we absolutely do, but it's beautiful to see how you are taking your faith, how it's impacting all of these different areas of your life, and you're allowing it to weave through and then turn around and help others. So, what inspired you to start writing books? Like, I know you mentioned that, in second grade, you went ahead
yeah.
and wrote a letter to the editor, but what inspired you to take your life experiences and put them down on paper for other people?
Well, as an adult, I like to say that a journey of how to go from surviving to thriving to help other people be empowered to thrive in their own lives because maybe they can learn from my experience. But even as a child, I've always been drawn towards the written word. I've always like it's just who I am. It's what I do. I mean, I did it in second grade and I wrote my first poem in fourth grade. Obviously, what I write now is not what I wrote then, and vice versa. But I've always been doing it. And if I'm not doing it, I'm thinking about it and I'm planning it in my head. And I'm like, okay, I need to be working on this or whatever. But I guess, and no one really told me you need to write. I think it was something that I don't want to say intuitively, but I don't know if there's another word for it that I felt like I knew, even though I didn't know how or why or what words to put on it, that I would be limited in the world with my vision. But as long as I had my voice and my words, no one could take that from me because they were mine. And that
Yeah.
would always be something I could do no matter what else may be going on or, chances I may not be afforded or whatever. As long as I have the internet and I have my mental capacity and a computer, I can write all day long. So no one can take that from me. No one can, try and stifle my voice or my expression of my voice. So I think that's kind of what I always go back to. And like I said, I'm always writing. I have a book as an editor right now. I'm helping a group write one right now, and I've got another one I've got to finish too. So I'm always
I love that. Well, talk to us a
I
little
can't do
bit.
this one thing.
Well, listen, that is sometimes I feel like that is one of the gifts that God gave us as women, and especially as moms, the ability to do more than one thing at one time. You know, because I feel like we're always doing that. But I
Yeah.
would love for you to tell us more about Now I See.
Okay, the book
Yes,
or what it's like to have been through that or both, because that's what the book
both.
is.
Yeah, both.
Okay. Well, it started with like the origin story of being born blind and then being healed, and then I actually walked people through. If you want a book that literally walks you through the 38 triple D of disability, death, and divorce and death, that's the book you want to start with. Because the first few chapters, I talk about that miracle story and what it was like to grow up with a disability and what I've had to do in life. And then we transitioned to when I met my first husband, and then very quickly realizing that wasn't going to work, and then be what it was like to get divorced, and then the how I met my second husband, and then our life together, and then what it's been like to lose him and having to travel that journey of grief and loss for almost 6 years now. And then I conclude with my truths and the lessons that I've learned. So that's kind of how that book unfolds and works. And so it just really, I pretty much am an open book. So what questions may you have about any one of those three Ds?
So, I would actually love to dig in a little bit more about what your life has been like living with a lifelong disability and how your faith, what role your faith plays in walking through life with a disability.
Well, there was a lot of things the doctors thought that I wouldn't be able to do because really what it boils down to, and I don't know if anyone has a medical background that listens in your audience, but it's called optic nerve atrophy or optrophy. I can't ever pronounce it right. And what that basically means is if you've ever been in an eye doctor's office or some high school biology class about where you see graphs of what those textbook pictures of the different parts of the body, you'll see that the optic nerve is one shape and you'll see that it's supposed to be purple. Well, mine is not. Far from it. It's like the totally wrong shape and it is not purple. Like to the point that it was so pale that when my pediatrician examined me in Houston, they your daughter doesn't have optic nerves. Like they thought they didn't
Oh,
exist.
wow.
And so it took the specialist saying, no, she actually has them. They're just so pale, they're practically undetectable. Like, okay. And what that basically means is the reason why what our optic nerves does is the bloodstream that goes through the optic nerve to send the signal to the brain so that the brain can tell the eye what to perceive. Well, when your optic nerves can't send it through, the brain doesn't get the information and the eyes don't get what the know they're supposed to be perceiving. So it's kind of like a constant delayed reaction, I guess is a way of looking at it from the way I understand it. And then people love to ask me, like, well, what can you see? I'm like, well, it's not that simple because when you look at optic nerves being totally jacked, and then you throw nearsightedness into the mix and astigmatism and nystagmatism and crappy depth perception and crappy peripheral vision, it's not really that simple. It's like you get like a really good cocktail for totally jacked eyes, like just like whatever. And so it depends on what I'm doing, what time of day it is. Is it light? Is it dark? Is it how far away? How big? How small? What color? Is there contrast? Have I been using my eyes all day? And they're like, what is wrong with you, woman? We're not doing any more work. Like, stop it. Go away. You're done. So it's not that simple. It's a very complicated cocktail and equation per se, but what it did do is you learn to figure things out because this really goes down to the philosophy of your life. Are you going to be an overcomer? Are you going to I was raised to believe that you don't quit, you don't stop, you don't give up. Okay. So telling me no is pretty much a guarantee it's going to happen with few exceptions. I mean, okay, obviously legal blindness in driving is not a good idea for anyone, and there's no getting around that. That probably shouldn't happen, okay? Not cool. So I don't do that. But other things you just find a workaround. If you can't move the mountain, then you find a way to go around or up or under the mountain. And so I don't know a more couth version of this expression. So substitute what you want. But that expression of hold my beer and sit back and watch,
Yeah.
that's me.
Yeah.
So maybe that's wine or maybe that's water or Coca-Cola. I don't know. Hold your glass of whatever and sit back and watch me go. I always thought it was beer, but whatever. So that's what I do. And a lot of the things that I talk about that I've used through the disability, divorce, and especially the death, I learned at an early age because, like I said, when you're a disability, um, you have to learn things. You have to get around the challenge somehow if you choose to do that. Or you can either be a victim or a victor, or you can just survive and say, okay, I can't do anything. Sorry, people. What do you want me to do? It's out of my control. Or you can say, screw it. I'm going to figure this out. Let's figure out what that takes. Now, the vision has not always changed, but as we know, through life, we go through different phases and stages, and those bring different new skill sets you have to learn. So, therefore, while the vision didn't necessarily change, what I had to learn to get around the vision did change to meet the new things that were required, like especially through school. So, I was always that kid with special accommodations and IEPs, individual lesson plans or whatever they're called. Yeah, individual. Yeah. Anyway, so, and then I always had K through 12th grade, I always had accommodations and oh, you don't even want to know what it took me to take the ACT. Like, I didn't like that. It was not just go somewhere on Saturday morning and take 4 hours to take it. It was a whole ordeal that took me a whole week to take the stupid thing. I'm like, oh my gosh, just to get into college. I'm like, okay. Like, who wants to take 12 hours to take a stupid test when you go sit in your guidance counselor's office 4 days out of the week to do one section a day that you listen on tape for 3 to 4 hours, circle the answers in the book, and then she transfer them to Scantrons because I can't do Scantrons. That doesn't work. Yeah. I don't think anyone wants to do that test for 4 hours. Never mind 10 to 12 hours. I'm good. I'm done.
Yeah.
I had what I needed to get into college. Like, I'm not doing this again.
Yeah.
I had extra time. I always sat on the front row, all the things. So, and that caused there was no real secret of hiding the girl who has to always be on the front row or has extended test time. And by the way, she wears glasses and has red hair. I mean, kids can be cruel. So you can probably imagine what it was like growing up in school with being legally blind and visual impairment and social issues. So, school, while I'm good at it, it takes a lot to be good at it, but it was not exactly necessarily a fun ride either. But I held my own. And so I learned a lot during that, and that I called it muscle memory because what I learned as a kid to get through the disability, I just implemented, like, I already knew the tools to do it. Now, obviously, it affected me differently going through divorce versus a disability and now grief and loss, but it's still the same idea. If you choose to overcome, then what it takes to overcome is exactly the same thing. There may be different nuances to someone else's set of obstacles because, like you said, what I go through, others don't go through, and vice versa. Stop. You're moving my computer. Sorry. So what I have to do, someone else doesn't have to do, but it's still the same idea what it takes to overcome whatever that obstacle is. So for me, it's been a 5-step process in all things in life, whether it was the disability or the divorce or now continuing to go through grief and loss. Excuse me for a moment. And I've talked about this a lot, but I eventually started calling it finding grace through grief and life. And it's the steps are surrounded around the word grace. And so there's 5 steps, and I can walk you through that process if you like. It's the G is finding your grounding in grace, which for me is my strong foundation in my faith, which, I mean, I'm sure there's others that would choose a different foundation, but for me, it is the best and only foundation can be our faith in our Lord Jesus Christ, but each to their own. For others, it might be friends or family or some other belief system or a combination thereof, but for me, it will always be my faith. So that's gaining your grounding in grief to hold you steady during the life storms, whatever the life storms may be, because I can promise you this, they are coming. It's just a question of when, how many, and what kind. There
That's
is
right.
no, unfortunately, we're going to be exempt from life storms or tribulation card. I'd love to find that card, so send it my way if I find it.
I'm still looking for it too.
Yeah, right. I think we all are. So if you find one, let me know, but I don't think you will, but happy hunting. And so you're going to need a foundation that holds you steady to get through that storm and to get to the other side of it. So you can just work towards thriving instead of surviving. The R is redesign, daring to be your, redesign and redirect your own course in life. Basically, you have to be willing to say, am I going to let my circumstances define me, or am I going to define it for myself, and be willing to chart your own course in life? So that's the R. The A is learning to live in abundance. No, we're not talking about finances. Now, it could be. That could be an area of abundance, and that's fine. But I'm not your financial gal. That's not what we're talking about here. I have a financial person, and I let them take care of that, okay? And I hold my own, but you don't want to talk to me about that. I know what my lane is. I know what's not my lane, and I stay within my wheelhouse. So my wheelhouse would be what I mean by living in abundance is the idea of our mindset. There's a reason why in our society that mind over matter, and I believe it was, I'm not great at quoting quotes, but I believe it was Henry Ford said that if you think you can, if you think you can't, you're right. Whatever you
That's
set your
right.
mind to, you can do.
That's right.
And that is why mindset for a lot of things is basically the key that unlocks the door to all the things, because if you put your mind to it, you're going to do it. So when you're going through these challenges, what kind of mindset do you want to have? Do you want to see that the world is half empty, half full? Do you want to focus? We will have to focus on the storms for a little bit because we have to have time to process. That's part of our human nature, and that's fine. And take a minute, take 5 minutes, take whatever you need to process it. But once you process it, you still have to figure out what you're going to do with it. And how are you going to use your mindset to either help or deter you? And are you going to look for like the rainbows and the silver linings and no matter how small or how hard it is to find it, the beams of sunshine? I'm not saying it's easy. I don't have all the answers. I struggle with it too, but I do know that's what it takes, because our mindset can impact how we work towards accomplishing the things we wanted to accomplish, while we're holding on to that foundation to steady us while we're making those choices. So that's what I mean by learn to live in abundance. So that's the A. And then the C is about choice. It's about choosing clarity and care over chaos and confusion. And having self-care is so vital for so many reasons. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions or thought processes that don't serve us well when we think on self-care. And I feel it's really valuable because when we care for ourselves, we are able to reset and refocus and kind of rejuvenate and refuel and get back on track. So we're not frazzled and overwhelmed and going, "Ah, and just like,
Yes.
I can't do this, whatever. Especially as women, because we are multitaskers and wear so many hats. I mean, like, oh my
Right.
gosh, like what? But so refueling our wells of water and making sure our spirit gets rest and is refueled and rejuvenated will allow us to do all these things we have to do, have the right mindset to do them, be able to keep true to the choices we want to make, and hold firm on that foundation because we're not distracted by all the things, or at least in our mental state. And then the E of equipped is being essentially equipped for the journey, having the right tools or resources that we need to help us do all these things. So that's finding grace through grief. And those have worked for every area of my life, and especially now.
I love that so much, Michaela. How you laid that out and using the acronym of GRACE is just one, it's beautiful. I love it. I really, really want to touch on the C and choosing clarity and care over chaos and confusion. And it could just be because that speaks very much to me right now where I am at in my own personal life. But so many, and part of my journey, which was being just steeped in chaos and confusion and calling it normal, because
What's
that's how I,
normal?
yeah, exactly. Like that's how I learned how to thrive, was being in that place where I was always constantly going in 17 different directions and doing 150 different things for everyone in the world and, all of that stuff. And I learned how to thrive in that until I hit the wall and couldn't do
Which is what's
anything.
going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to burn out. You're going to be depleted.
Yes.
I think it is like we're deep, 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 deep wells of water. Okay. We have these amazing reservoirs, and we love to care and be there for everyone and take care of our friends and our families, especially as women. And that's great. We should. But if you're always giving out the water, eventually you're going to run out unless
Yeah.
you're putting something back in. And if you run
Yes.
out and have nothing back in, you're going to be useless to everyone. So self-care, or the act of self-care, isn't really selfish. It's actually selfless because you're valuing and seeing it's important that you're being what you need to be and taking care of you so that you can be there for everyone and offering your best self to live your best life for yourself and the ones that are in your life. You know, I went to grad school a couple of times before I finally finished. So my second attempt at grad school was a master's in social work. And I grew up hearing this verse. Of course, I think it was Matthew 22, I think. It's basically the great commandments. I'll have to look it up on my phone. It's going to drive me crazy because I don't want to tell you how long. When Jesus talked about what the two great commandments were, and then my professor said to me, because he was a pastor, I think, or at least part-time pastor before he was professor, he said, there's actually three commandments. I looked at him like, what? Because you never hear about that in church, or at least I didn't growing up. So there's actually three. Because if we don't love ourselves, we can't love anyone else. So there's actually
That's
three
right.
that scripture. I was like, oh, okay, interesting. That always stuck with me. And so to me, I think that applies into self-care. And actually, in one of the books that I'm putting together right now, there's actual scriptural foundation for self-care.
Yes.
It's actually biblical if you want to look at it from that
Jesus
perspective. If you
spent,
want,
it's recorded multiple times that Jesus went
I
off
know,
by himself to pray. Like Jesus
yes,
gave us
or
the
meditate.
blueprint. Yes, he gave us the example of
Yeah.
self-care. So yeah, I'm in 100%
And
agreement with you.
even before that, so if you want to have, like, you need permission, if Jesus did it, then why in the crap can't we do it? If we think that we can get away without doing self-care and we're not perfect like him, okay, that's crazy. Wait a minute. The master himself, our Lord and Savior, did self-care, and you think we can get through this life without it? Good luck. I've had it. But and even before that, there was a 10 commandment in the Old Testament that we were put the Sabbath. Do you think God needs a day? I mean, he took a day of rest because he knew we would need it. He set the example, but he set the Sabbath aside for us.
Exactly.
So anyway, so if you're one of those people that need a reference, like this is really okay for me to do, there's the ultimate
There it
authority
is.
right
Yeah,
there.
there it is right there. And
And I'm
it's
not
so
saying I'm
interesting.
just at it, but I've gotten better about it over the last 6 years with going through grief because grief will pretty much land you on your butt if you don't take care of yourself. So just
Yeah.
FYI, little heads up there.
Absolutely. And I'm in the same boat, not with grief, but with learning. I don't have it mastered yet. I don't know that I'll ever become master of much of anything in this life, but because we're always learning. It's hard to master something when there's always something more to learn. But that's
Right.
one of the things that I have been trying really hard to do is learn how to adjust my priorities and understanding that, I mean, people use the airplane analogy all the time. When they go through all the
Yep.
safety stuff in the beginning, they tell you to put your mask on first before you help someone else. Because again, if you cannot do anything, if you have run yourself to the point, and listen, I used to run myself to a point where my body would set me down. Like I would get sick, I would get the
Uh-huh.
flu, I
Yeah.
would get
Yeah.
just whatever.
Yeah. I've
And
been there
because I would not stop, so my body was like, all right, well, we'll do it for you.
for
And
you. Exactly.
yes, so I'm getting much, much better at respecting the fact that, God made me as an incredible human being, right? Being a human being is awesome, but we do have
Right.
limitations and we have
Oh, yeah.
to respect what those limitations are. And we can't live out our full potential to the glory of God if we are not taking care of ourselves, if we are not resting, if we're not, eating, if we're not, eating, sleeping, hydrating, and moving. Those those are like the four really important things that you should do to keep
Yeah.
a body like in motion.
Right. And there's different types of self-care because there's our mental self-care, there's our physical self-care, there's our spiritual self-care, our emotional, so there's different levels and different ways of doing. And what for one person is going to be self-care is not going to be self-care for someone else because we're unique individuals to have unique interests and desires, and the way we feel refueled or rejuvenated is not going to be the same. Like, okay, more power to someone who likes to run and do marathons. Okay, that is amazing. I'm not one of them. That is not relaxing to me. That I don't enjoy. The only time you'll see me run is when I'm scared or trying to get across the busy street. Okay. Other than that, I don't run. But if that's what you love to do, go do it. That just ain't me. I'm much more of a shopper girlfriend time, spa. Let's watch a bunch of Hulu at night while the kids are in bed with maybe that's mine. Yeah, that's more my style.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or journal or music or meditation or stuff like that. Or be in the pool.
And that's a great point because self-care is going to look different for everyone, because we all look different. We all have different, like you said, things that interest us, things that I used to think that I was an extrovert until I realized that that's not actually. I can do that. I'm very good at working a room and doing all the things, but that's not what actually fills me up. That drains me and it depletes
Right.
me. I'm good at it and I can do it, but I don't
Right.
enjoy it like I do my solitude, my quiet time. Like in order for me to refuel, I need to be alone. I'm an introvert. I need to be, by myself and just me, and please everyone else go away. Like I will go not lock myself, but I will go shut myself in my bedroom and I will watch, movies. Like I love you kids, I love
Yep.
you husband, but leave me alone. Like I'm going to be in here for a couple hours like watching some mindless movie so that I can just simply be and
Yep.
not be doing something
And
else. So,
I think that's part of self-care is not only knowing what is better for you, but also balancing because there are times where we have to be out in the world and be with people because we were meant for community, but it's
yes.
okay to what I call turtle and go in your shell. And knowing
Yes.
when it's time to be in the community when you need to rely on that community versus, okay, I'm going to go be a turtle. And I can be a turtle for a little bit and know that that's better for me. Or some people might say cave time, right? That's also biblical. I forget which prophet it was, Isaiah or not Isaiah, Elijah or Elisha, the one that spent time in the cave for a little bit. So I turtle sometimes, that's okay to turtle. But that's also knowing the right balance of when you can't hide in it, but you can turtle. So
Yes. Absolutely. Well, Michaela, I would love for you to share with our listeners how they can find you. Like, aside from watching you here on this podcast and listening to everything you have to say, how can they connect with you when the show is over?
I'm on Facebook and I'm on Instagram, although I'm not the best at social media because it drives me crazy. It gets overwhelming to keep up with it, but I do have a website called myheartfeltmeditations.com. Yes, I'm gonna talk faster, so if I need to slow that down, I can. And all of my books are on Amazon right now, and I have new projects I hope to be coming out soon. So
Okay, great. And friends, I always try to link everything I can down in the show notes. So we'll have the link to your website and where folks can find your books on Amazon. Those will be down in the show notes so that it's just one click. Like I do try to make it so easy because I enjoy easy. So anytime I can make it easy, um, yeah, I do that as well. Well, Michaela, thank you so much for being here with us today. It's been such a pleasure and a joy to talk to you. You have definitely made my day. I Laughter is one of the things that fuels me and gives me joy and kind of like rejuvenates me. So I have gotten my beautiful dose of laughing today. So thank you so much for that.
topics that we talk about are easier sometimes when it's lighthearted, and I mean, not that they're not serious, but when you
Yeah.
add a little cleverness to it and kind of make it easier for it to go down.
Yes, it's like the what is it, the spoonful of sugar that makes the medicine go down or something? Yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
absolutely. Well, Michaela,
It's
again,
more
it's just
palpable.
yes. It's been a joy to have you here. Thank you so much for being with us
Well, I'm
today.
glad to be here. Thank you for having me, and I hope someone can glean something out of what I shared.
Absolutely. Hey, friend, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. It's my pleasure, as always, to be here with you. If what you listened to today resonated with you, if you enjoyed listening to the show, do me a favor. Go ahead and like and subscribe to this podcast and leave a review. Those reviews are so helpful. I can't even tell you how much I appreciate each and every single one of them. And go ahead and share this episode out with a friend. Invite them along for a walk through the Word, and let's enjoy that daily bread together. See you tomorrow.